If whenever you say something the person is just confused and look at you completely uninterested and nothing is moving forward, then you are probably not communicating on the right sensory channel. As I often say, it is not an obligation to always speak visual to a visual person, to always speak kinesthetic to a kinesthetic person, depending on what their eye patterns are doing. However, big thing, if there is a complete mismatch, if none of what you say is having any impact, they are not interested, they just loop in circles in the conversation, they are just stuck on repeat mode, always saying the same thing that is leading nowhere, then definitely you are not communicating on the right sensory channel, and we need to act upon that. Eye patterns and sensory language and sensory representations, though, are maybe one of the most misunderstood aspects of neuro-linguistic programming, because first of all, when people have noticed that maybe sometimes they think in visual pictures, then they will think that everything they have in their life, everything they think in their life is always visual. No, it doesn't happen like this. You will put more focus on one sensory system in one certain context at one certain moment. So during a conversation, the person you talk to may be highly auditory, speak much more in auditive language, what they heard, what they noticed, how did the sounds like, stuff like that. And at some point they might shift toward visual language because they get more stimulated and remember something from their past. It is not the point of always categorizing if this one is visual, this one is kinesthetic. We may have a certain favorite sensory channel. However, what is much more important is to always shift and adapt based on what your listener is saying. They will not always use the same language, and you need to follow them as usual until you can lead them. Pacing and leading, traditional NLP. Back in the day though, when I started developing those skills with reading eye patterns, what do people say or what do people think when they have their eyes going up, their eyes going down, at some point I could very easily spot if a person was more visual, more auditory, all of that, but it was not really helping that much because I was like, yeah, okay, I know that person is more auditive, more auditory, but then what? Then what do I do with that knowledge? I was missing some information into the NLP books I was reading back then for what to do once you know about that, once you know their sensory system. Should you just lecture them on, oh, you are an auditory person? And actually sometimes I did that and the person got really irritated and even scared, because sometimes they were noticing that indeed they were thinking in more in sounds, and that was scary for them that somebody could read them from the outside. And sometimes they would just go defensive, like, well, no, what are you talking about? So it was not really leading anywhere to just lecture people on you are visual, you are auditory. Not really much of an interest, not really much of a value in that. What I found out though is there is a way that I elaborated on to use that information in conjunction with submodalities, and that is definitely where I experienced a big shift in my communication, because the whole point, I think, of noticing eye patterns when people think in internal dialogue, when people think with their eyes up, the whole point of all of that is simply to use the right suggestion at the moment they think this way. So if when they use a visual word, like my life is unclear, pretty visual terminology, my life is unclear, there is a dark and shady shadow in my life, metaphoric language that you may hear during a session with a client. If they say that, the point is at the same moment to use a suggestion like, for sure, yes, I understand your life is pretty shadow and there is a shadow and it is dark these days. Out of curiosity, I'm wondering what would it look like if we could find a brighter and clearer future for yourself, and what it would look like if you could put things into perspective so that you can take a closer look at what can make you feel better. And using visual language like this, I noticed people would go like, oh, have a big aha moment. Same thing, I would repeat with like a kinesthetic person. If they talk about being stuck, blocked, pushed down on the ground, like it feels heavy, I would use language like, sure, and what if your life could become more fluid, more malleable? If we could soften that tough, difficult area of your life, whether it is your job, your relationship, stuff like that, and if we could make that become more fluid, more malleable, soft, up to the point where you can lead yourself and move forward toward a more positive future. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but the point is to use the same sensory channel than the one they are using to describe their problem. And that way, every time I was doing that, I was noticing people had either a massive breathing shift, like something where they pause and they go like, and they were reflecting deeply on themselves. So I noticed it was not that much about only speaking visual, only speaking auditory, but more to be able to spot and catch at which moment the person is changing their sensory channel and speak at this exact moment. So it is more a matter of calibration and timing more than always being able to speak on the same channel of language. When I was doing that, they would always have a big breakthrough, either right away or a few seconds later, because their mind would start to rearrange things, stuff like that. The point, therefore, is to always have a few of those sensory lines ready to go, and then to catch when people notice and catch when people are changing their sensory channel, and have a few of those phrases always ready. If you want to develop your skills with that and learn how to do that and how to automate language with sensory channels and with submodalities language, you can find a method down below that can teach you all of that step by step, where you will learn, first of all, how to notice when people go more visual, more auditory. Some signals like the eye patterns are not always the best signal to notice that. There are many other signals with the hands positions, with the way they touch their chin, with the things they do in life also. Depending on if they are more auditory or stuff like that, they may have different jobs or occupations that they chose intuitively, and they think it was just because of their liking, of their values, of their liking. Sometimes it is because they are highly auditory and they took that job or that occupation because of that, because they enjoy sounds much more. For example, many things like this can indicate to you how a person enjoys communicating and wants to receive information and adapt your language with that. And therefore, in that method, you will find how to always build your language patterns with a few of those submodalities patterns, a few of those this submodality language that will alter their perception and never stay stuck or stagnant in something that doesn't work. Whenever they are stuck, whenever the conversation is looping around and not leading anywhere, you will have a few of those words and phrases that will get them unstuck, that will make them see clear through the mess that is lying in their head. And it doesn't need to be long phrases or very complex phrases. It is more the timing that is important. When do you say that more than how long can you speak? It is all about speaking shorter phrases, but at the right time. With that knowledge, you will be better equipped whenever you want to help somebody, whenever you want to make people change, when you have a friend who is struggling. As a reminder, don't try to force people to change when they don't want to. It is not the point at all. It is the point of having better tools for effective change and rapid change when somebody is indeed asking you for your help. And so far, you may have had trouble to accomplish that repeatedly with all the people you want to provide a change for. That will definitely be of massive help down below, first link. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next video.